She walked in like a ghost. No one noticed her. No one cared. She didn't have a sponsor shirt, or tactical gloves, or a weapon that looked like it had just been pulled out of a military-grade catalog. Her jeans were faded, her jacket plain, and her rifle, old-school bolt-action, worn and polished by time, not tech. The men at the range smirked. Some whispered, others didn't even bother lowering their voices. Who let Mom in here? She probably came to pick up her son. Must have gotten lost looking for the knitting club. But Lisa Bennett wasn't there to prove them wrong. She was there because she had one thing in mind: the shot. The shot her father had prepared her for her entire life. The shot that would change how everyone in that room looked at her forever that day. The range was hosting an elite-level competition. Some of the best shooters in the state were lined up, trying to beat a record that hadn't been touched in years: 288.4 meters. Wind correction, elevation adjustment, and a half-inch margin of error. It wasn't beginner-level stuff. It was the kind of shot you train for over a lifetime. And Lisa, she hadn't competed once, not ever. She had never entered a tournament, never posted online, never once shared a video of herself shooting. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want the noise. She didn't want the attention. And after losing her father, her coach, her best friend, her hero, she didn't think she'd ever pick up a rifle again. But something changed that morning. Lisa opened her late father's gun cabinet, pulled out his old Winchester Model 70, and drove to the range quietly without telling a soul. By the time her name was called, she had already been written off by nearly everyone there. One of the judges double-checked the sheet when he saw her step up. "Are you sure you're Lisa Bennett?" She nodded. "I'm sure." There was no fancy warm-up, no stretching, no loud grunts or pre-shot rituals. Lisa simply set her feet, took a breath, and locked in. And then she fired. Silence followed. Not the usual muttering or casual clapping. Silence. The judge raised his binoculars, blinked out, lowered them, raised them again. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. Dead center, he muttered. It broke the record. It shattered it. The reigning champion, who'd been lounging with a protein shake and bragging about his custom optics setup, stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Lisa turned around, nodded politely, and walked. Away from the bench, no smile, no swagger, no speech, just the same quiet calm she came in with. People rushed her. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Who trained you? Was that luck or skill?" Lisa looked around and for the first time spoke more than a sentence. "My dad taught me. We practiced every Sunday after church, rain or shine. He told me one day I'd be ready for the shot that mattered. I guess today was the day." And just like that, she packed up her rifle, zipped up her old leather bag, and left the range without another word. No Instagram handle, no brand, promotion. No fame, chasing. By the time she reached her truck, the whispers had turned into shouts. People were filming, asking her to come back. Reporters would call within the hour. Shooting forums would blow up with speculation and admiration. Some wouldn't believe it, claiming trickery or luck. But the official score and the untouched target would silence them all. What Lisa Bennett did in that moment wasn't just break a record. She broke a mindset. She shattered the arrogance. She cracked the illusion that greatness always looks loud, flashy, or male. Her shot became a legend. Her name, once ignored, was now spoken, with awe. And somewhere, watching from beyond, her father was smiling, because he always knew when it counts. One shot is all it takes, and Lisa made it count, asterisk. The crowd was still frozen long after Lisa left the line. It wasn't just the shot, though. It was perfect. It was the quiet, controlled presence she carried. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even ask if she hit. She knew the target, a high-pressure steel plate at 288.4 meters, positioned slightly off-angle with a 12 miles per hour crosswind. Even seasoned shooters struggled to hit it clean, let alone center punch it. But Lisa had done more than that. Her bullet didn't just hit the bullseye. It passed through the center ring so cleanly that the spotter initially thought it was a misread. But the slow-motion playback from the range cameras left no doubt. She had broken the record, and not by a fraction. She had beaten it with such precision that the hole overlapped the center in a way range officials had never seen. And yet, no one knew who she really was. A few people tried Googling her name. Nothing came up except a small obituary for her father. Harold Bennett, a retired Marine and competitive shooter who had once held state records in 3 disciplines. He had never gone professional, but those who knew him in the military called him Hawk. His reputation in sniper school was legendary, but quiet, just like him, just like Lisa. Inside the range clubhouse, arguments broke out. That's not possible. No one shoots that clean on their first competition. She must have had military training. Maybe it was a setup. Staged, a media stunt. But the staff, judges, and spotters knew better. There had been no setup, no cameras, no brands, no expectation. Just a woman who walked in, waited patiently, and outshot everyone. A day later, range security footage was leaked online. It showed Lisa's calm demeanor, her perfect posture, and her flawless technique. The video exploded. 8.2 million views in 24 hours. Comments flooded in. "She's better than any YouTuber I follow. That's what mastery looks like. No drama, no noise, just results. I've never seen anything like it." Some even started calling her the ghost shot because no one saw her coming, and by the time they realized what happened, she was gone. Back home, Lisa avoided the online storm. She wasn't interested in fame. She had returned to her regular life, volunteering at the library, taking care of her small property, and continuing the routines she'd built after her father's passing. But that shot had awakened something in her. Not ego, not ambition, but a truth. She had spent years training in the shadows. Not because she wanted to win trophies, but because her father had taught her the value of readiness. He never pushed her to compete. He only ever said one thing when she'd ask if she was good enough. "You'll know when the time comes. You won't need anyone to tell you, and you won't need to prove it. You'll just know." Now she did. 3 weeks later, Lisa received an invitation to a national-level event, all expenses paid. Her story had inspired thousands, especially women, especially those who had been laughed at, underestimated, or ignored in male-dominated spaces. The competition organizers wanted her front and center. She declined graciously. Instead, she made a small video. It wasn't high production. Just Lisa in her backyard range, speaking directly into the camera. "I'm honored people care about what I did, but I didn't do it for the headlines. I did it for my father. He believed in quiet excellence, and I believe in carrying that forward. You don't need to be seen to be valuable. You don't need an audience to do something great. Sometimes, the best things you'll ever do will happen when no one's watching. But you'll know, and that's enough." The video was shared over 1 million times. People began calling her, not just the ghost shot, but the quiet legend. Her story became a symbol not just of skill, but of humility. In a world where so many chase likes, applause, and validation, Lisa's silence spoke louder than any crowd. And to this day, that record still stands. No one's broken it. Some have come close, some even claim they will. But those who were there remember the moment. The shot, and the woman who changed the game without ever asking for the spotlight. She came in with nothing. She left with everything that matters: respect, legacy, and proof that sometimes the loudest power is quiet precision, and it only takes one shot to change everything. As word spread and Lisa's quiet shot echoed across forums, blogs, and news feeds, the attention she had tried so hard to avoid grew louder, but not louder than the peace she carried inside. She didn't need the noise to validate what she had always known: excellence doesn't require an audience. Back at her modest countryside home, life moved on as usual. The same gravel driveway, the same kitchen where she brewed coffee at 5:30 a.m., the same wooden bench out back where she cleaned and oiled her rifle, her father's rifle. Once a week, without fail, the sudden popularity didn't change her rhythm, but it did change how the world saw her. Days after her video went viral, a retired Navy SEAL reached out to her. Not for a podcast, not for a publicity stunt, but for something deeper. "Lisa," he said in a handwritten letter, "your shot reminded me of something we've lost: discipline without ego, purpose without noise. If you're willing, I'd like to train with you, not to teach, but to learn." She read the letter twice, folded it neatly, set it beside her father's metal case. Then came letters from young women, dozens of them, some in shooting clubs, some who had never held a rifle. All of them moved by her silence. They weren't asking for lessons in marksmanship. They were asking how she carried herself in a world that tried so hard to shrink her into a stereotype. Lisa responded to every single one, handwritten, slow, thoughtful. "You don't have to shout to be strong," she wrote to one girl in Montana. "You don't need to be seen to make your mark," she told another in Virginia. And then came the calls she didn't expect. An invitation to speak at a military sniper training facility, not about tactics, but about mindset. A message from a major outdoor gear company asking her to design a custom rifle series in her name. Even a Hollywood producer wanted to explore her story for a possible film project. She turned them all down, gently, politely, without a second thought. Lisa didn't want to be commodified. She didn't want her story rewritten for entertainment. She had already told the story she wanted to tell in a single, silent shot. But she wasn't done yet. After months of reflection, Lisa made a quiet decision. She took a portion of her savings, purchased a stretch of undeveloped land on the outskirts of her town, and began building something her father had dreamed about but never finished: a free-range shooting facility for underrepresented youth. No competition, no scoreboards, just safety, focus, respect, and learning. Word spread fast. Former military vets volunteered to help. Mothers brought daughters, retired teachers, small-town deputies, even a few skeptical dads showed up, watched, and slowly started. Nodding in approval, Lisa named it the Hawks Line, in honor of her father's call sign. A place where no one laughed when you stepped up to the line, where your background didn't matter, only your intent. At the entrance was a sign carved by hand, with one quote etched deep into the wood: "Excellence whispers, let your silence speak." By now, even the national shooting community had begun to take notice, not just of Lisa, but of what she represented. She was invited to speak at international summits, featured in niche documentaries, and even referenced in elite military training seminars. Still, she never changed her voice. She never craved fame. She never cashed in. She simply continued, and her legend grew. One winter morning, exactly 1 year to the day after her historic shot, the range that had first ignored her invited her back for an anniversary event. They had upgraded everything: new benches, a digital scoring system, banners celebrating their most historic shot. They even named the lane where she fired that shot Bennett Line. She arrived early, before the crowd, before the speeches, stepping up to her old spot. She laid out her father's rifle, polished and glowing in the morning light. She took a breath, lifted the stock to her shoulder, and fired another perfect shot. Not for a record, not for applause, but for the memory of a man who taught her to aim true, breathe steady, and speak only when the shot demands it. Later that day, as a local news crew asked her what she thought of the celebration, she smiled faintly and said, "I appreciate it, but I didn't do it to be remembered. I did it to remember who I am." Because Lisa Bennett didn't just break a shooting record, she broke through the silence. Women are too. Often forced to accept, she broke past the doubt. She didn't demand attention. She earned respect, and in doing so, she left a mark deeper than any bullet ever could. But in people. And so, Lisa Bennett walked off the range the same way she walked in: calm, quiet, and composed. No spotlight, no celebration. Just a woman with a purpose, a legacy in her hands, and a message the world wasn't ready for, but desperately needed. She didn't need to talk over the noise. She simply let her actions speak louder than words ever could. One shot, one moment, one woman who reminded us all. True power doesn't announce itself. It arrives in silence and leaves a legend behind. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, share it, because someone out there needs to be reminded. They don't have to be loud to be great. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Real stories that prove the quietest voices often have the sharpest aim.